fresh off a contentious confirmation hearing, Justice Neil Gorsuch will take the bench Monday at the Supreme Court. It will be the first time Gorsuch puts on the black robe as a justice, and his presence brings the court back to full strength, more than a year after the sudden death of Justice Antonin Scalia. The courts face a busy week as it rounds the final turn of the term set to conclude by the end of June, with one case dealing with religious liberty and the other voter ID fraud. All eyes will be on the potential right-leaning Gorsuch and the impact he is sure to have on the court's final decisions. Yes, indeed, America, it is true. Gorsuch. Rich Webster.
Sure. So, like Richard said, the court is now finally back full steam, more or less. I mean, is it balanced? I mean, because Richard described it previously in the show as being right-leaning.
It's a right-leaning court.
It is right, but it's slightly right-leaning.
It's always been, but it's a 5-4 court.
It's 5-4, but you have your middle vote, which is right-leaning, but can flip-flop either way.
Yeah.
Right. So with Gorsuch on the court, you're basically looking at a guy who has very, very strong fundamental values about the law. So he's someone who's a traditional interpreter of the Constitution, which tends to align with things that Republicans tend to agree with. And I think voter ID is really going to be an interesting test for him. Now, voter ID is something that historically seems like a no-brainer. And this is going to be my litmus test for how he's going to take his time on the court. I think, personally, it's hard to make the argument that voter ID, these laws that oppress people from voting, should be upheld. I think it should be a bipartisan thing, right? So everyone should agree that everyone should be able to vote, and we shouldn't put undue barriers in front of people in order to get that job done. Now, will Neil Gorsuch take the right-wing route, or will he take the, the constitutional route? I
don't know. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see what he does. I mean, his track record of being on the court speaks to the fact that he seems to definitely be a right-leaning member of the court. But then again, folks, justices surprise you. Remember, John Roberts was the one who voted to uphold the Affordable Care Act.
Right.
Justices surprise you, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. And it's going to be very interesting to see how John Roberts, because the courts have become more and more politicized. And for John Roberts, what at least we've seen from his legacy so far, is he hates the idea of the politicization of the courts.
Right.
But the courts, case after case after case, has put the courts in the center of these crazy political battles. Mm-hmm. So now, with Gorsuch there, does Roberts move to the left? Does Roberts move to the right? Does Kennedy say, you know what, screw this, I'm going to join the justices of the left, I'm going to join the justice on the left, and we're going to be 5-4 the other direction? There's a lot of different strategies.
Well, and it's interesting because once you're on the court, you're
going
good.
nowhere.
Like, you don't have to answer to anyone. It's not like any other position where, like, you have donors that you have to worry about, where you have constituents that you have to worry about, we have the American people you have to worry about. Your only job now is you get a ruling that you're reviewing, and you have to interpret it based on statutes and all of the written law that currently exists.
Now, think about this. Now, this interesting thing about this playground case, which it's this religious freedom case, is a playground is asking for a tax rebate or a tax abatement to basically use the recycled tire material for their playground, and the government. So there's this big battle here. We'll see what happens, but it's going to be a question of whether or not taxpayer dollars can go to fund things that religious institutions do. There's a lot of interesting line crossing.
These are the type of cases that end up at the Supreme Court. It can be something as stupid as paying for chewed up tires for a playground, right? But what it's really looking at is, where are we drawing the line with separation of church and state, and how do we draw that line?
Yeah, and here's my thing. My thing on this one is pretty simple. If at the point where how is the best way to put this? For me, the religion, like, if this playground was open to the public, then I think you qualify for a tax abatement, right? Whereas if
it's private just for the school,
if it's private just for the school, or people who go to the court, then you don't qualify. And so I think that is that's where the line is for me. I don't know what the line is for other people, but that's where the line is for me.
I mean, it would definitely be interesting to see if it was a Muslim school that was going to the Supreme Court.
Would they be the same?
Whether this would be a case pushed by the Democrats or pushed by Republicans, right?
No, I mean, I think you're right. And we also find out this week, Rich, in the news, that the U.S. is preparing to seek charges against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. U.S. authorities have prepared charges to seek the arrest of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. I'm reading this just as it is. The Justice Department investigation of Assange and WikiLeaks dates back to 2010, when the site first gained wide attention for posting information from Chelsea Manning. Prosecutors now are trying to get that sucker. So we'll see what happens. But the interesting situation with this is Mike Pompeo, who is the head of the CIA, he hates Julian Assange. Right. But what we've seen from Donald Trump is previously a love of Julian Assange.
That was like a direct quote, right?
Yeah, he's like, I love him, you should get more information. And now we will find out. The Attorney General said, though, that it is one of the top priorities of the Justice Department to get Julian Assange. Now, we've had some debates about this here on the Fowler Show, because me and Rich are on different sides of the WikiLeaks Julian Assange stuff. Richard
likes stifling whistleblowers.
I'm on the Mike Pompeo.
You're
Jeff Sessions
anti-transparency,
You're
right?
on the Trump side.
I mean, sure. I mean, that doesn't sound better than the Trump side.
What, Jeff Sessions and Mike Pompeo?
Yeah. Maybe. I mean, I don't think either of those sound good.
It's not about transparency, people. Here's my thing. I've said this, I will say it again. If you are an American and you decide you're going to steal our foreign secrets, right? See, I think Julian Assange I think they're cowards. He's hanging out in the Argentinian embassy basement because he's afraid. Listen, if you're gonna be a badass and you're gonna be like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna fight back, then like, be a man about it. Be like, fine, arrest me, whatever. I'm doing the right thing for justice. It's the same thing as it's the same thing as those dreamers who are like, I want to stay here, and my mom will not get deported, and I'm going to throw myself in front of the bus so it doesn't get deported, and they get arrested. Okay. They're standing up for something. Julian Assange is a coward, just like Ed Snowden, just like Chelsea. Well, Chelsea Manning is the only one that's not a coward because he actually faced charges.
Chelsea Manning's a she.
That's what I meant. Excuse me. Chelsea Manning, she. Is not, and now she's free. She's been pardoned, yep. Right? But I think the reason why Obama pardoned her is because he's like, hey, listen, that's a bad bitch.
I don't know. I mean, here's the thing: if you don't have Edward Snowden, if you don't have Chelsea Manning, if you don't have WikiLeaks, we would be in the dark about a lot of the stories that have been literally like the defining
I agree with you on all
themes
of that.
About the last 10 years, right?
I agree with you on all of that. My argument is
they should go to jail.
No.
That's what's going to happen.
No, but my argument is don't run.
I don't know.
Don't run. Let's go to court and then let's have an argument. I think we can all agree that 50% of the time our justice system works.
Okay,
right?
well, let me
So let them go to a jury of their peers and say, I did this for all of us. I did this for American freedom. I did this for our values. I did this for our Constitution. And thus, because I did it for all of these things, this jury, y'all, my peers, shouldn't send me to jail.
Well,
that's the manly thing to do.
The most important thing here is historically the biggest barrier to whistleblowers coming forward, and that's whether it's government secrets, that's whether it's corruption in the workplace,
and I would,
that they are scared of having consequences for blowing the whistle. This is
I would go
of people being scared of it.
Not to interrupt you, but I would go a step further. I would be willing to strengthen whistleblower protections, but I think you're gonna have a hard time. I think you're gonna have a hard time doing it because all these whistleblowers that have been out there have been cowards.
I mean, I think
Ed
your
Snowden
obsession with
leaked everything, and now he's hiding out in an airport in
your
Moscow.
Obsession with them hiding is like so not the point. Like
They're
the prosecution
cowards.
of them is like 10% of the story, and what they did after they leaked it is not even the most.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
The
I think you're going to have a hard time.
What they leaked. It's not what happens to them afterward.
All the Ed Snowden supporters out there, most of them are big believers that we should strengthen whistleblower protections. Right, mm-hmm. Like yourself, right? Yeah. You believe that, right? So and I'll give you that. But you're going to have a hard time convincing other people who think they're cowards that we should strengthen whistleblower protections. They'll be like, well, why would we strengthen them? These guys didn't even use the protections they did have. They ran like punks.
That doesn't make sense, though. I mean,
It does
the reason
make sense.
that we need to strengthen the protections is
because they ran like
they're-
punks?
No, it's because people are scared to face our justice system. That's why they ran.
Well, that's why we need
That's
a
a
bold.
perfect
Like I'm
argument
saying,
for it.
I think we need to increase whistleblower protections. But at the same time, if you're going to whistleblow, be man enough or woman enough to say, listen, I whistleblowed. I did my part for the American people. If y'all going to lock me up, hell, lock me up.
Oh, my God. Richard Fowler never being a whistleblower because he doesn't want to go to jail.
That's not true.
You
I've
would
never
go, if you
whistleblowed.
saw real, exactly, because if you saw something that could impact the entire country, you'd be like, screw that, I'm not going to jail.
If I saw something that was unjust.
No, if you saw something that
If
would
I
change
thought our
the
government,
fate of
no,
the country,
that's BS.
you would not go
that's
to jail.
BS. That's BS. If I saw,
Be real. You would not go to jail.
That's why I went to Ferguson for a month. I went to Ferguson for a month because, well, for a week. Correct the record. But I went there because I thought there was an injustice being done by our
facing
system.
30 years for doing it. That's what happens.
An injustice is an injustice. But if you see an injustice, you speak on it and you take the consequences. Don't try to be like this. Let's just argue. Like that's the problem with this whole thing, right? Is like you have people like the Black Panthers. You have people who fought in the Civil Rights Movement who said this is unjust and we're going to fight it. And a lot of times it took a long time, but 90% of the time they won. Look at Lovey versus Virginia. That couple said we're not breaking up because of this stupid law. This is an unjust law that the government is duly prosecuting us, so we're going to fight this thing all the way to the Supreme Court. And guess what? They won. But you have Ed Snowden, who is a punk at best, who leaked this information and then ran to Russia, right? And there's nothing manly about Ed Snowden. There's nothing heroic about him. I actually think Chelsea Manning is more of a hero because she leaked, she got arrested, she went to jail, she transitioned and said, I'm still here. I did it for the American people, and I'll serve my time for doing it. And that's why she was pardoned.
She had PTSD and almost killed herself multiple times in jail. So
I'm not saying
like how awesome was that for her?
No,
she
but
tried to kill herself.
But she's more
times.
of a hero than Ed Snowden, who's hiding out with the Russians.
I mean, but
who
that's
hacked
just a perfect example of like. I mean, if we were talking about,
so you're saying that
Chelsea
it's being a hero for that he's hanging out with Vladimir Putin, hiding under the bed, so we don't go get him.
Oh my God! I mean, our president's hanging out with Vladimir Putin, and
we don't. Well, that is true. I think our president's a punk as well.